The silence took over the meeting room when Margaret, our CEO, interrupted my presentation with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Taylor, thanks for taking the time to prepare this preview, but plans have changed. Olivia will be presenting Project Aurora to the investors tomorrow. 2 years of non-stop work, countless sleepless nights, and hundreds of hours of coding suddenly felt like a crushing weight on my chest." I glanced at Olivia, Margaret's daughter, sitting next to her mother with a satisfied smile. Hired only 6 months ago as a special consultant, she hardly understood the basics of the artificial intelligence platform I had created. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I replied calmly, feeling the gaze of every executive in the room. "Project Aurora is my creation. I wrote every line of code and algorithm. No one knows this technology better than I do." Margaret adjusted her immaculate blazer while keeping a professional expression for the rest of the board. "We recognize your contribution, Taylor. But Olivia has valuable connections with the investors and an AI background from Stanford that will add credibility to the presentation." Kevin, our CTO, was the only one to speak up. "Margaret, with all due respect, Taylor has led this project right from the start. She deserves to make this presentation." "The decision has already been made," Margaret replied curtly. "Olivia will represent Global Tech tomorrow. It's settled." It was at that moment that I opened my laptop and projected a document onto the screen in the room. "Maybe you'd like to see this first." Margaret's expression crumpled as she read the transfer of ownership contract signed by James Bennett, the founder of Global Tech. The document proved that he had transferred 51% of the company's shares to me 3 months before his retirement. "What's this?" Margaret asked, her voice losing its composure. "James always knew you'd try to push me aside when the project was finished. He warned me about your methods." In the next moment, Megan, my assistant, entered the room carrying several files. "The documents you asked for, Taylor." I handed out the detailed reports to every board member. "These documents show bank transfers made by Margaret to an account in the Cayman Islands, coinciding with meetings with our main competitor. I've also included emails where she shared confidential information about Project Aurora." Margaret's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. You can't prove anything." "We also found out that Olivia's Stanford diploma is fake," I continued. "She never attended that school." Olivia looked at her mother in horror. "You said you had sorted that out. That it was just to impress at the interview." "Olivia, shut up." Margaret hissed, but the damage was already done. "You lied to me?" Olivia asked, tears in her eyes. "You said I deserved this position, that I had potential." At that moment, the room erupted in heated arguments. Margaret tried to leave, but security guards were already waiting at the door, alerted by me beforehand. "This is a corporate coup," she shouted as the guards escorted her out. Olivia approached me, visibly shaken. "I had no idea about the info selling. She told me that you were getting all the credit for the team's work. And you believed her without questioning." "She's my mother," Olivia replied, swallowing hard. "But this ends here. I'll tell everyone everything I know about her contacts with the competition." That same afternoon, I called an emergency board meeting. The tension in the room was palpable, as the members unanimously voted to remove Margaret from the CEO position. "Considering the circumstances and the legal transfer of the shares," announced the board chairman, "Taylor will temporarily take over as CEO until a formal vote is held." As everyone left the room, I stayed alone by the window, staring out at the city skyline, trying to absorb the magnitude of what had just happened. A message from James popped up on my cell. "I always knew this day would come. The company is in good hands now. The next morning I found Olivia in the company lobby, sitting alone with a box of personal belongings. Her eyes were red and puffy. I hesitated for a moment, thinking back on all the times she had interrupted me in meetings, or tried to take credit for my work. But something about her current vulnerability struck me. "Are you leaving already?" I asked as I sat down next to her. "I thought it was the right thing to do," she replied without looking into my eyes. "After everything that happened. Did you really know about what your mother was doing? About selling our information?" Olivia shook her head. "I swear I didn't. I always found it weird how she kept pushing me into roles I clearly wasn't qualified for, but..." She sighed deeply. "I spent my whole life trying to please her. When she suggested I take over the presentation, I thought it was my chance to prove myself. I carefully considered my next words. It would have been easy to fire her and move on, but something told me there was an opportunity here." "And what about your education? Do you have any real experience in technology?" "I have a bachelor's in business administration from NYU. Nothing related to advanced technology." She finally looked me in the eye. "I never went to Stanford. It was my mother's idea to put that on my resume." An idea began to form in my mind. "So what do you really want to do, Olivia? If you could choose any career without your mother's influence?" She looked surprised by the question. "Honestly, I've always been interested in product management. Understanding what users need, helping shape the vision of a project." Her face brightened a bit. "I used to do that in college projects. That's where I really shined." "We have an opening for a junior assistant on the product management team," I offered. "The salary's modest, the hours are long, and you'd be starting at the very bottom. You'd have to work hard to prove your worth." Her eyes widened. "You're offering me a job? After all this?" "I'm offering you a real chance. No shortcuts, no favoritism, no resume falsifications. Starting from scratch, like all of us once did." "Why?" "Because I believe everyone deserves a second chance. And just one." I stood up and smoothed out my blazer. "You'll have to work twice as hard to earn the team's trust. You'll need to study and learn constantly. And you have to take constructive criticism without taking it personally." Olivia set her box aside and got up, extending her hand. "I accept. And I promise I won't waste this opportunity." As I shook her hand, I felt a small weight lift off my shoulders. "Start on Monday. And leave your box with HR, you're going to need a clean desk to start over." The conference room was packed with investors, tech journalists, and board members. The murmuring stopped when I stepped onto the stage. This was the moment I had envisioned countless times over the 2 years of developing Project Aurora. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Taylor, acting CEO of Global Tech, and today I have the pleasure of introducing the technology that will redefine the artificial intelligence industry." As the lights dimmed and the first images of Aurora appeared on the screens, I felt a mix of pride and responsibility. I wasn't just presenting my creation. I was setting a new direction for a company that had lost its ethical way. Aurora isn't just another AI algorithm. It's a complete ecosystem that learns, adapts, and evolves with every interaction, all while keeping total transparency in its decision-making process. I demonstrated how Aurora analyzed medical data to identify patterns that human specialists might miss, optimized supply chains by cutting waste by 67%, and could revolutionize scientific research by processing and correlating millions of academic papers at once. But what really sets Aurora apart is its commitment to ethics. Every decision made can be tracked and explained, eliminating the black box that has been the biggest barrier to the widespread adoption of AI in critical sectors. I noticed some investors exchanging impressed looks. One of them, the notoriously skeptical Dr. Harriman from Westland Ventures, raised his hand during the Q&A session. Impressive demonstration, but how can we trust that global tech will maintain the ethical standards you mention, considering the recent incidents? The room fell into a tense silence. Everyone knew he was referring to the scandal with Margaret, who now faced criminal charges. An excellent question, Dr. Harriman. Trust isn't declared, it's earned. That's why we're implementing 3 fundamental changes at Global Tech. I explained our new corporate governance system, with quarterly ethical audits conducted by independent experts. I detailed the creation of a technological ethics board that includes academics and digital rights activists. And finally, I introduced our new policy on radical transparency. As of today, any employee can flag ethical concerns directly to the board without fear of retaliation. We're also setting up a profit-sharing program for everyone, aligning each person's interests with both our ethical and commercial success. At the end of the presentation, the room burst into applause. Investors lined up to talk, and journalists scrambled for interviews. I spotted Olivia at the back of the room, diligently taking notes on how the investors reacted to different aspects of the product. While chatting with a group of investors, I saw James Bennett arriving discreetly. After finishing with the investors, I walked over to my mentor, who was smiling with obvious pride. "You exceeded my expectations, Taylor," he said as he briefly embraced me. The presentation was flawless. "Thanks for trusting me," I replied. "Especially for trusting me with the company. How did you know Margaret would try to push me aside?" James sighed, his eyes revealing decades of corporate experience. "I recognized the patterns. The way she constantly downplayed your achievements, demanding to be present at every development meeting. When she started bringing Olivia into strategic meetings, it became clear. Is that why you transferred the shares to me without telling anyone? I needed to be sure that you'd be protected when the time came. And I needed to see how you'd handle power when confronted with betrayal." My gaze wandered to Olivia, who was now talking with some members of the product team. "You kept her on," James observed. "An interesting decision." "I gave her an entry-level position, starting from the bottom. No privileges." James nodded thoughtfully. "Many would have chosen revenge. The hardest choice is often to offer redemption." "She isn't her mother," I replied. "And everyone deserves a chance to build their own path based on genuine merit. That's why you're running this company now," James smiled, placing his hand on my shoulder. "Leadership isn't just about results, it's about building an ethical legacy." As we walked through the room, now buzzing with enthusiasm and possibilities, James remarked, "Aurora is going to change the AI market, no doubt. But what you're doing here, rebuilding this company with integrity at its core, that's the real revolutionary work." The weight of his words resonated as I looked around the room filled with people excited about the future we were building. A future that, just yesterday, had felt like it was slipping through my fingers. "This is only the first step," I replied. "We've got a lot of work ahead." A year had passed since that decisive presentation of Project Aurora, and I still find myself surprised every time I walk into my penthouse office and see the city skyline through the panoramic window. The nameplate on the door now reads Taylor, CEO, no longer acting, an official change that was unanimously voted by the board 3 months after Aurora's launch. While reviewing the quarterly reports at my desk, the numbers tell a remarkable story of transformation. Global Tech's share price has tripled. Our AI platform is being implemented in hospitals around the world, where it has already helped detect subtle patterns in tests that led to the early diagnosis of thousands of cancer cases. Governments are using Aurora to optimize public transportation systems, reducing both traffic jams and carbon emissions. Universities are applying our technology to speed up research into climate change, sustainable agriculture, and renewable energy. But the number I'm most proud of isn't in the financial reports. It's our employee retention rate, 97%. A record in the tech industry, where turnover is usually relentless. My assistant knocks lightly on the door. The Calypso project team is ready for the review meeting. Thanks, Megan. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Calypso is our new initiative, a natural evolution of Aurora. While Aurora revolutionized how machines process and analyze data, Calypso is redefining how humans and AIs collaborate to solve complex problems. The name comes from the Greek nymph, who helped Odysseus on his journey, a metaphor for our vision of AI as a partner, not a replacement. On my way to the meeting room, I pass by Margaret's old office. The old guard executives expected me to occupy that grand corner office with opulent furniture and locked doors. Instead, I transformed the space into a collaborative open work area. Glass walls replaced solid partitions, symbolizing our new policy of transparency. Margaret is now under house arrest after reaching a legal settlement in which she agreed to testify against competing company executives involved in industrial espionage. The press speculated a lot about my feelings regarding her fate, but I've always kept my focus on the company's future, not the past. The meeting room is full as I step in, a diverse mix of engineers, designers, ethics specialists, and product managers. Among them, I see Olivia, now a junior user experience coordinator, a position she earned after excelling in our internal training program. Let's start with the update on the user testing, I suggest, sitting among the team instead of at the head of the table as is traditional. Olivia opens her laptop and projects usability data onto the screen. The results are promising. 92% of users say that the Calypso interface seems intuitive, or very intuitive. The learning curve has decreased by 40% compared to the last prototype. She navigates through the data with genuine confidence, so different from the artificial arrogance she showed when she first arrived. The contrast between the Olivia of today and the one from a year ago is remarkable. She went from someone trying to take credit for someone else's work to a professional dedicated to creating something truly her own. After the meeting, Olivia asks to speak with me privately. We walk over to the common area overlooking the park. I got an offer from Nexus Technologies, she confides. They want me to head up their UX team for a new product. I feel a mix of pride and the prospect of losing a talent who was really blossoming. That's a well-deserved recognition. The position comes with a good raise, I assume. Almost double my current salary, she confirms. But I decided to turn it down. That takes me by surprise. May I ask why? Because the work here is more meaningful. At Nexus, I'd be working on yet another social media app designed to maximize screen time and monetize users' attention. She pauses. Besides, I still have so much to learn here. And I owe you for that second chance. I never made that decision expecting eternal loyalty, Olivia. A second chance means exactly that, the freedom to build your own path. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Staying is my choice. She smiles. I've learned more about professional ethics and purpose over the past year than in my entire previous life. As she heads back to work, I reflect on how the choices we make shape not only our individual destinies, but entire cultures. The decision to give Olivia a redemption wasn't just a turning point in her life, it subtly influenced our corporate culture as well. At the celebration marking 1 year since Aurora's launch, the grand event hall was lit with the brand's colors, deep blue and golden amber. Employees, partners, clients, and investors mingled in animated conversation. Aurora, originally designed for complex data analysis, has evolved into applications none of us predicted. On the makeshift stage, I tapped a crystal glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. The buzz slowly faded away. Thank you all for being here tonight. Exactly 1 year ago, we launched Project Aurora with huge hopes and even bigger expectations. What we couldn't foresee was how this technology would find its way into so many aspects of human life. I paused, looking at the faces in the crowd: engineers who sacrificed nights and weekends, marketing teams who told our story to the world, partners who trusted our vision when it was just that, a vision. Today, Aurora is helping doctors diagnose diseases, scientists model complex ecosystems, and educators tailor learning experiences. But the real triumph isn't in the algorithms or the data architecture. The screen behind me showed images of our teams working together, followed by real examples of how Aurora is being used worldwide. The real triumph is the culture we've built. A culture where innovation is rooted in integrity. Where transparency isn't just a marketing slogan, but a daily practice. Where success isn't measured solely by shareholder value, but by the positive impact we create. I spotted James Bennett at the back of the hall, quietly proud. Our mentor, now officially retired, still makes occasional appearances to offer wisdom when needed. Many ask what the secret to our success is. The answer is surprisingly simple: we believe that the journey matters just as much as the destination. That how we build something is just as important as what we build. I raised my glass. So tonight, we're not just celebrating a product or some impressive numbers. We're celebrating a way of doing business. We're proving that ethics and innovation aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, one fuels the other. After the applause, I moved through the room, talking with different groups. Eventually, I found James in a quieter corner, watching the celebration with a thoughtful expression. "Spare a penny for your thoughts," I offered, stopping beside him. "I was just remembering the day I hired you," he replied. "You were a fresh graduate determined to change the world through technology. I remember thinking, this is the person who will one day lead this company. You never told me that. Some things are meant to be discovered, not told." He smiled. "You've built something remarkable here, Taylor. Not just the technology, but a model for what a tech company can be. I'm just continuing what you started." "No," he shook his head. "You're writing a new chapter. One that might even be more important than all the ones that came before." A young developer approached shyly, asking to talk with me about an idea for using Aurora in marine conservation. I excused myself from James and joined her. Later that night, alone in my office after the celebration, I looked out at the lit-up city. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out the small leather notebook James gave me when I took over. On the first page was a handwritten quote: "The true test of leadership isn't in building success, but in creating conditions for others to succeed too." I flipped through the pages, where I'd jotted down thoughts and reflections throughout this transformative year. On the last filled page was a recent entry: "Power isn't in controlling others, but in empowering them to realize their potential. A true legacy isn't what we build on our own, but what we inspire others to build." I closed the notebook and looked at the framed photo on my desk, our original Project Aurora team, before all the turmoil, when we were just a group of idealists determined to create something meaningful. The journey since then has been unpredictable, challenging, and ultimately, transformative, not just for the company, but for every person involved. Including me. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. I turned off the office lights and left, not as the person who nearly lost her project to a corporate conspiracy, but as someone who discovered that the greatest creation of all is building an environment where integrity and innovation coexist.